On November 17, 1720, the Atlantic world faced a series of immediate shocks to its legal, financial, and biological order. This is the American Weekly Mercury. It functions as a synchronous ledger of these global dispatches, logging the exact mechanisms authorities use to maintain control. In Paris, authorities are hunting the perpetrators behind the brutal assassination of a prominent public figure. In southern France, the regional quarantine has failed, leading to a resurgence of the plague. In London, the British Crown is executing a legal sweep to crush speculative corporate bubbles that are wiping out public credit. And in Colonial Philadelphia, local courts are preparing the gallows for weekend executions. We are going to track these dispatches geographically, from the streets of Paris and the financial houses of London, through the royal courts of Hanover, and into the colonial courtrooms of Pennsylvania. Examining this single week from 1720 provides a precise look at how the early modern state operated under pressure. When facing interconnected crises, the responses recorded here reveal a universal reliance on absolute, unyielding force. The Paris dispatches open with a criminal mystery, the assassination of the poet Sieur Berger. Evidence suggests an intentional, violent act, logging he was shot and dismembered. Authorities ruled out robbery, as his watch and valuables were left untouched. However, the murder of a single citizen is quickly overshadowed by a larger emergency threatening the state. The regional quarantine has collapsed. The contagion, previously assumed to be contained at Marseille, is now spreading again. The government's immediate response was to deploy 3 state physicians directly into the hardest-hit zones to attempt to stop the infection. But the true containment strategy relied on severe border control in the adjacent regions. The penalty for breaking this sanitary cordon was terminal. One inhabitant of Marseille who traveled to Lyons without an official bill of health was immediately hanged. Adding to the instability, Cardinal Gualtieri reports from the Vatican that the Pope is lying at the point of death. From the management of a pandemic to the investigation of high crimes, the French state's response relied on the swift application of absolute force, symbolized by the immediate hanging of those who violated its emergency orders. Across the Channel in London, the British state was battling a different type of contagion. The Whitehall dispatches reveal panic among the Lords Justices over financial manipulation, which they note is leading to the destruction of public credit and the ruin of private families. To stop the collapse, the Crown deployed a legal crackdown targeting large organizations operating as unchartered corporations. Legal writs were fired against specific industrial entities, naming the York Building Company, English Copper, the Lustring Company, and Welsh Copper and Lead. The state authorized physical punishment and imprisonment for brokers, while also levying massive financial penalties against anyone engaging in these illegal practices. These economic penalties were absolute. Offenders faced complete forfeiture of all lands, tenements, goods, and chattels. This regulatory environment triggered immediate volatility across the exchanges. Looking at the daily market listings, we see the speculative South Sea stock crashing, swinging between 810 and 820 in a single noon session. The British government prosecuted financial manipulation with the same intensity as a capital offense, authorizing the total seizure of a citizen's physical wealth and the permanent loss of their liberty. While domestic crises roiled France and England, the European powers projected stability through high-level diplomatic theater. The Hanover dispatches document the orchestrated arrival of the Britannic and Prussian majesties, flanked by the Duke of York. The state projected power through material excess. The royals arrived in a magnificent coach drawn by 6 fine horses. This deliberate political utility exposed them at the window to satisfy the populace and ensure the crowd delivered demonstrations of joy. This manufactured peace in Hanover contrasted with active military mobilization on the Iberian Peninsula. The Madrid dispatches report a massive movement of Spanish troops marching toward Cadiz and Malaga. Spain moved these troops for an offensive campaign across the Mediterranean. The Spanish crown was preparing a descent into Africa with the intent to form 2 simultaneous sieges at Oran and Tetuan. This reveals the dual machinery of 18th century statecraft, pacifying the domestic population through grand spectacle while deploying organized military force to expand borders abroad. Shifting away from the royal courts and European conflicts, the ledger brings us directly to the local reality of the American colonies. Beneath the theater of international wars, the everyday execution of colonial justice was absolute, efficient, and terminal. The local Philadelphia borough posts a notice regarding impending weekend executions for Edward Hunt and Ann Hewson. Hunt's crime offended the colonial economy. He was condemned for counterfeiting Spanish silver coin. Hewson's offense was against local property. She was condemned for robbing the Widow Green. The notice states as a matter of administrative fact that both individuals are to be executed together on Saturday next. The severity applied to a counterfeiter in a Pennsylvania colony mirrors the severity applied to a citizen breaking quarantine in Marseille. Both were met with the rope. This edition of the American Weekly Mercury acts as a diagnostic of the era. Whether managing a pandemic, collapsing markets, or a local robbery, the defining characteristic of the 18th century state was its uncompromising, fatal authority.
The Daily Dispatch, history in print.